Franchise non-compete clauses are complete BS.
You mean bullshit? You can say that, right? It doesn't have to be polite.
I was trying to be polite, but I complete bull. I mean, there might be solicitors watching that are like, Joe, you're absolutely wrong, but
If it's in a resale kind of situation, actually it's a real benefit to have that non-compete clause there as well.
they wouldn't be competing with the brand, would they?
Well, they would, but just not with that local territory.
Ed has spent a whole year just geeking out on everything franchise so he can beat me.
That is a strong statement. Do you stand by that? Welcome to the Full Disclosure Podcast with me, Ed Pennell, the founder of The Franchised.
And me, Jo Middleton, from Franchise Business School.
Each episode, one co-host has to make and support a strong statement from around the franchising industry. The other co-host has to argue against it. This week it's Joe's turn, so let's get on with it.
Franchise non-compete clauses are complete BS.
You mean bullshit? You can say that, right? It doesn't have to be polite.
I was trying to be polite, but I complete bull.
That is a strong statement, saying they're completely bullshit. And do you stand by that?
Full disclosure, kind of not. I think that they are very useful for deterring, and my understanding is that although some say 3 years, they're only really enforceable for 12 months. I mean, I'm not a solicitor by any stretch, but I think that if, for example, you've got an employee that leaves head office and they wanted to set up in competition, or you've got a franchisee that exits their territory and they wanted to set up in competition, then they've got a 12-month window to hone their business model, watch what you're doing and come back stronger 12 months down the line. So what is the point?
Should we kind of clarify what a non-compete clause is,
Good idea.
as well, just in case people aren't sure of what they are? So my understanding of it is when a franchisee leaves for whatever reason, they are not allowed to go into business or competition with the franchise brand that they're leaving.
Mm-hmm. Exactly that, for a set time period.
For a set time period. And I don't get into the legal side of things too much with franchises. So are they normally 3 months, 6 months, 12 months?
Usually 12 months, but it used to be 3 years, and it seems to
3 years.
Yeah, but my understanding when it was, I mean, there might be solicitors watching that are like, Joe, you're absolutely wrong. But my understanding was that 3 years wasn't enforceable, but 12 months was. So it was reduced to 12 months.
Ah, okay. So I know of them from the recruitment world, and it'd normally be 6 months non-compete. So you couldn't go after any of the clients that you'd already established with the recruitment brand that you're working for. The reality of it never happened, and it was never enforced, as far as anyone in the industry has ever said, because you're taking it. I think the argument against it is you're taking away the livelihood of that individual. If they can't operate in the industry with the expertise that they've got,
right,
how can they find another job doing the same thing or start their own business doing the same thing? So there was, I think, if it went to court, that was always the kind of combative argument against it. So it was only really as a deterrent.
Yeah, I do think, though, and I know that this is your argument that I'm arguing for you right now. But
this is easy, isn't it? I'll let you argue it for me.
That franchisor's got an ultimate duty to protect their brand, and so even if it only acts as a deterrent, they need to be seen to be protecting their brand for the benefit of everyone who's involved in the brand, not least the franchisees who have invested in good faith on the understanding that the franchisor will do their best to protect their asset. So to have that non-compete clause in documents, to have prospects signing a non-disclosure agreement as part of the recruitment process, is the franchisor ultimately trying their hardest to protect the brand. And then should someone breach the non-compete clause, or should someone breach a non-disclosure agreement, then the franchisor, I believe, should be seen to be taking what action they can in order to make a stance that actually this isn't acceptable. This is our brand. We do what we do it well, and we're not going to let anyone just come along and replicate.
Cool, thank you for, clearing this up. We'll just end it now, shall we? No, actually, I've got a point I wanted to make as well about if it's in a resale kind of situation, actually it's a real benefit to have that non-compete clause there as well, because it makes it more attractive to the incoming franchisee or prospective incoming franchisee, because they know that the person who's exiting, who's perhaps built up a nice business, is not going to be able to compete against them for X amount of time, giving them a chance to put the feet in, and then start running the business and doing it all themselves.
And I think it's the same when you sell any business. When I've sold local businesses, it's usually in X amount of miles radius of that area. So it could be, for example, that I'm not sure about franchises, but with local business, although I know franchises are local businesses, but it would usually be within a 50-mile radius or something. They wouldn't be able to set up a competing business. So, for example, if you had a franchisee who was exiting a business and selling it on to someone else, would they be able to buy with the same brand sort of the other end of the country and move up there? Because they wouldn't be competing with the brand, would they?
Well, they would, but just not with that local territory.
No, I mean with the same brand. So if you had a franchise...
okay, so they exit in Kent, but they're going to go set up...
Yeah, they could set it up there. That would be fine because it wasn't direct competition. But if they wanted to set up with another, so Baby Sensory, if they wanted to go with a Baby Sensory franchise brand that was a different one to the one they were on board with in Durham, then they wouldn't be able to do that for 12 months.
Yeah.
That's a very long-winded way of saying what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, it seems like a frustrating, annoying thing to have in that contract, but I think there's, like I say, those resale benefits are important. But also it gives you the kind of security knowing that the brand across the whole country or across the world, wherever you're based, is not going to be impacted by people that are just going to come along, learn what the franchisor teaches them, and then 6 months later go, right, thanks for that, now off. Because if you look at it, the training and support in that early phase setup, you pay a lot more to go out there and try and source all those individual elements yourself in such a refined way. So if someone was just being cynical, and there might be people out there who just want to come in and sort of take all of that knowledge, know how to set something up, and then disappear and go and do it themselves.
Well, there are absolutely people that will do that when they see a brand being successful. I've had it done to me personally. And I know that there are people out there operating what I started under their own umbrella, but they aren't as big as the brand that I created, and I know that they aren't actually any real threat to that brand, but they've tried. It's a watered down version, but they've tried. The other argument that I've got on my little list.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are some of the arguments against for the statements, should I say?
Rather than arguing your point. So there is around franchisees literally just having a 12-month window to hone their business offering that they're going to launch in 12 months' time. So the non-compete clause say it's for 12-month period. The franchisee has then got 12 months to pull all the information together that they've pinched from your brand and to get all set up. They can get their website set up. They can get everything set up in the background, and they can start warming up a social media audience of their ideal customers ready to launch. So it gives them a window of time for them to start doing that.
Against that, it also gives the franchisor a window of time to replace that exiting franchisee with somebody else to get themselves set up, and they'll be 9 months, a year ahead of the new competitor that comes in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beat you on that one then?
Yeah, I think you beat me hands down on this one anyway. It wasn't a full disclosure. I don't agree with the statement at all. But I did find some points in the deep cavity of my brain somewhere. The other thing is that it can be a barrier to franchisee recruitment and to franchisees coming on board. So you have an initial conversation with a franchisee and you say, before we can discuss anything any further, I need you to sign this legal document, which is a non-disclosure agreement. And you send it over to them and you never hear from them again, because right from the word go, in the prospect's eyes, they're thinking along the lines of, right, this is a big decision I've got to make, and they're not seeing that the franchisor has got a big decision to make too, and needs to be sure that that franchisee isn't going to just clone everything. So it can scare potential prospects off.
There's a way around that though. So you just send over the you send over the NDA while you're on the call to the individual and talk them through the points and explain why they're there. So there's a way around it.
Okay. Okay,
Again, yes. I feel like I'm absolutely whooping you.
So Ed has spent a whole year just geeking out on everything franchise so he can beat me.
Not a whole year. I'm just,
It's been a whole year.
Here's what's coming up next on the Full Disclosure Podcast.
Putting a franchise button on the homepage of your website can be bad for business.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to be alerted for when the next episode is out. Also, please share the podcast far and wide, because the more people we can educate about franchising, the better. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.